Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here and checking out this new information that QLA Foundation is offering about securing parental rights for LGBTQ plus families in Washington. My name is Denise Diskin. I am the Executive Director of QLA Foundation of Washington, and we are an organization that provides legal services, legal education, and really community-centered legal resources for LGBTQ communities across Washington. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about parental rights for LGBTQ families and about the resource available through our Family Matters Legal Clinic, which offers legal representation start to finish for LGBTQ families who need some sort of legal relationship, some sort of legal recognition of the family relationship they have with children that they are raising. So that's what we're going to do today. So I want to start by talking about, and I should also say before I dive in, I'm also here with Meredith Ruff, who is QLaw Foundation's really outstanding Family Matters Legal Clinic intern, and who is one of the people that if you come work with our clinic, you would likely be working with, and has really done a lot to help put this presentation together. The information that you're going to get today is information, sort of general information about the law, general information about the different processes that are available to you. It's certainly not legal advice because I'm not talking directly to any one of you in particular. And so if you have questions about what your family's legal rights might be or whether this clinic is the right fit for you, please do reach out to us on our website, www.qlawfoundation.org, and there's also a link at the end of the presentation. So to start off, I want to talk about the kinds of families that our communities make. And the short version of this is that LGBTQ families make all kinds of really beautiful, beautiful family arrangements, beautiful relationships. We have for generations been told that we didn't fit in the regular sort of, normal mold of straight cis families parenting children in a marriage context. But that has not stopped us from raising children, and that has not stopped us from making families that work for us. What we know about LGBTQ families is that 28% of LGBTQ people are raising children in one way or another. That may be children from a prior relationship, it may be children from their current relationship, it may be children of friends or other family members, but the long and short of it is that 28% of us are raising children. 38% of trans-identified people report that they have children. So that is, while I'm a cisgender woman, I am co-parenting with a trans person, and we are raising a child together. So my partner is one of that 38%. Most families are raising children that at least one person is biologically related to, and families have all kinds of other relationships outside of that. Our communities are also really child-oriented. We are 7 times more likely to be raising adopted or foster children. Some of that comes from the sheer mechanics of how we make families, but also some of that comes from the generosity of our communities, that we are people who want to create families and we want to be involved in children's lives, and we are caretakers just like anyone else. And so for that reason, we are very much a part of the adoption and fostering world. Black, Indigenous, and other people of color are more likely to be raising children than white LGBTQ people, which again speaks to the resilience and chosen family and biological family networks that bring LGBTQ people among all kinds of marginalized communities together. And then finally, about 1 in 5 families include parents that are raising children from a previous relationship. So that's just a quick snapshot of LGBTQ families here in Washington. And now we're going to talk a little bit about why we might want a court to recognize parental rights. Oops, skipped ahead. There are a lot of reasons that you might want a court to recognize your parental rights. There are a lot of reasons that you might not want the legal system up in your family, and that's super reasonable. But the things that come with a court order securing parental rights are things that could be really helpful for your family. So a few things to know as you make a decision about whether getting a court order that recognizes your family relationship is right for your family. And you might be thinking about it in the context of a family where you have one biological parent and one or more non-biological parents raising children. You might be looking at a family where you are raising children that may be biologically related to friends or other chosen family. You may be raising children from a prior relationship that are biologically related to your former partner. Or you may be raising children that are children of your family members who are not able to care for them. So you may have a biological relationship that is not a parental relationship. Though you may be performing parental duties and may want to be recognized as a parent. So the ways that a court order can help secure your rights are that a non-biological parent's rights are not always recognized in other states or internationally, even if they are recognized under Washington law. And I'll talk a little bit more about how those moments may arise. What we do know is that a court order signed by a judge here in Washington is going to be recognized in every state. That's part of what's called the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution. You don't need to remember that part. All you need to know is that if you get a court order that is signed by a judge that says you have a parent-child relationship, that is a court order that you can take to every state. Some court orders will also be recognized internationally, others may not, and again, we'll talk about that. One really important thing for LGBTQ families to know, and it's something that I learned a little bit later in my parenting journey, is that a birth certificate with your name on it as a parent is not a legal document. It doesn't establish that legal parent-child relationship. It is evidence that can support that, that your relationship with a child was intentional. If you are a non-birth parent, it can support that your relationship with the child was intended and consented to by a birth parent, but it is not by itself a legal document establishing a parent-child relationship. It's more of a health statistics document. Another reason that families sometimes want a court order to secure their family relationships is that we live in unfortunately, a very uncertain political climate. So while right now we have federal and state recognition of marriage rights for same-sex couples, while right now we have federal and state recognition of family relationships, especially here in Washington, that has very broad definitions of family relationships, you may not always live here in Washington, or the circumstances around us, particularly on the federal level, may change. And so you may want that court order that lasts beyond just this moment in time and helps preserve your legal parental relationship with your children into the future and across the United States. Other times people want that court order because it gives them certainty, right? If something happens to a child's other parent, where will that child go? Will I be recognized 100% as the child's parent? And I know that many of us have heard horror stories about something happening to a child's biological parent. Maybe it's their partner or their former partner. And the children, rather than being released to their other parent who is not biologically related to them, sometimes the children have been placed in state care or with non-affirming family members. And I know many, many families, particularly right now as we are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, many, many families are really worried about making sure that their connection to their child is supported, not just on the best days of your life, but on the worst days of your life. And then finally, some parents are very concerned about making sure that if their relationship ends, that each parent has protected legal rights to the children from that relationship with the children that they are raising together. And those are really important. Those are really important considerations. Divorce never comes at a convenient time. It never comes with good and healthy communication, or almost never. And so it is really important to many families to make sure that they have that protection in the event that their relationship ends and they need to figure out what each person's relationship to the children from that relationship is going to be. So I'm going to talk for a moment about second or third or fourth parent adoptions. Many LGBTQ families, and particularly specifically many L, B, and T families, are familiar with second parent adoptions. Typically, what a second parent adoption is performed, the reason a second parent adoption is performed is that there is one biological parent that is parenting the child, and then there is another parent, usually a same-sex married partner or a trans married partner, but not always, who is not biologically related to that child. Usually it's the result of assisted reproduction, things like going to a fertility clinic and getting inseminations and things like that, or doing home inseminations using a sperm donor, sometimes an egg donor. So a second parent adoption in Washington can happen regardless of whether the parents involved are married. And you'll see we're also talking about third or fourth parent adoptions. And the reason for that is that Washington's adoption statute is very broad as to who is allowed to adopt a child, and who is allowed to, under the law, establish a parent-child relationship. So we have in Washington had many instances of second parent adoptions, and fewer, but still many instances of third parent or fourth parent adoptions. And those have arisen sometimes in poly families where there's many people who are parenting a child, sometimes in families where there are multiple relationships between the parents, but they've all agreed to co-parent, and sometimes where relationships between two parents have ended and the parents have established new relationships and want to make sure that all of the partners are recognized. And, you know, fortunately under Washington law, that is totally allowed. And I always say that, you know, nobody ever ended up in therapy because there were too many loving, caring adults performing parental duties in their life. So we think second and third and fourth parent adoptions are a really great thing. So again, those can happen regardless of marriage. Adoption decrees, because they are really widely used, you know, the term adoption is something that people understand all over the country and all over the world as something that establishes a legal parental relationship that is just like sort of what they might call a natural relationship or a birth relationship to a child. And so for many families, this is the route that people want to go in because they know that they may need to travel internationally, or they may have family in other parts of the country or other parts of the world that they travel to frequently, and they want to make sure that if anything happens, they have that decree that really keeps everybody safe. It also ensures federal benefits like Social Security, so that even if right now, all legal parents under Washington law are also recognized under federal law as legal parents. And so if something happened to a parent, they would still be allowed to access, the child would still be allowed to access that parent's Social Security benefits. But that may change. We live in really uncertain times for our communities, unfortunately. And so adoption, because it creates that very clear and very firm and very widely recognized parental relationship, ensures that those federal benefits will continue to your child, even if something happens to you as a non-biological parent. So a few things about the adoption process. It starts by filing a petition by the adopting parent, so that means the non-birth parent. With our program, and typically with a second parent adoption, the other parents agree to the adoption. So that's a little bit different than an adoption from the DSHS context or through foster care, where a new set of parents is adopting the child and the old set of parents is terminating their parental rights. In this case, no one is terminating parental rights. One parent has that relationship and the other parent or other two parents are joining and also having that same relationship. It does require that a social worker visit with your family and file what's called a post-placement report. The social workers that we work with are LGBTQ inclusive, but you can also choose your own. In the process of that, the family does have to fill out some forms that involve like medical history, financial history, and and then also have a home visit with the social worker. That can be done virtually, particularly now because families are doing social distancing for safety reasons. And the idea of the home visit is that it is an opportunity for you to tell your social worker, and for your social worker then to tell the court your family's story. Every family has such beautiful stories. We all come together and make our families out of such deep love and such deep resilience. And this is an opportunity to talk about, how did you plan to make your family? How did your family come to be? And what are some of the values that you bring to your family? We really do push for this to be minimally invasive. So this is not, this is, as I said, as you can see on the bottom of the slide, it is not an evaluation of your fitness to be a parent. That is not a question. It's also not a decision about whether you deserve to be a family. So any social worker that you are working with should be coming to your family with a storytelling lens and not an evaluation lens. Their job is to make a recommendation for the court that says that they do recommend your family for adoption. And what they are telling the court is, I don't have any concerns about these parents being able to parent their children. Let me tell you the story about this family. It's very different than what many people feel is part of a DSHS or foster parent adoption process, or maybe if a child has been involved in dependency or even CPS, Child Protective Services proceedings. This is not any of those processes. This is a family that is already in existence, is already parenting together, is already forming family values and already acting as a family. And so the social worker's job is really to affirm that and tell that story to the court. I will say it is not our favorite part of this process, and we wish that the law was different, but unfortunately it is required under law for this particular second parent adoption or third parent adoption process. At the end of the adoption process, there is a hearing where a judge asks questions. Typically the questions are simply, do you know what this legal, financial, emotionally supportive relationship is? Do you know that it lasts the entirety of the child's life? These are not tough questions. And then typically the judge will simply sign the decree. Often the judge approaches it as a celebratory occasion. I always have observed that judges get to do so few things in their courtrooms where people are happy and where people are in agreement, that judges typically really like these processes. But just to be safe, with our program, we very frequently work with LGBTQ affirming judges because we know that those judges understand that our families are not here by our own free will. Our families are here to protect ourselves against homophobia or transphobia in the event that something happens to us. The next process that our clinic can help with, and that may be a path to a legal parental relationship for LGBTQ families, is called the Agreed Confirmation of Parentage. This is a very new process under Washington law. And what this process does is affirms that a non-biological parent is still a legal parent and is already a legal parent under Washington law. The way that you get there is to be married at the time of the child's birth or within 300 days of the child's birth. And if partners are, or if co-parents are unmarried, they have to acknowledge that they have to A, acknowledge that they're parents, and B, be planned parents and be holding out the child as, holding out their relationship with the child as a parental relationship for the first 2 years of the child's life. So typically this is a process that is used more for married parents who want to make sure that in the event that things change on the federal law level, or that Washington changes sometime in the future, they don't simply have a Washington statute to rely on, but they have a court order that other states have to recognize that says that they are a confirmed parent under Washington law. The outcome of this process is that you do get that court order that is valid in every state. The thing about this process is that because it is a little bit newer, we haven't had the opportunity to test it, particularly outside of the United States. So we haven't had an opportunity for a court outside of the United States to say whether they recognize this process or not. So if you're a family that travels frequently outside of the United States, or where one parent is from another part of the world, this may not be as secure a process as you want, or you may want to get more information before you decide. Unlike adoptions, which are a sealed court process, confirmation of parentage is a process that is available through the court record. So if you ever needed copies of your confirmation order again, you would be able to access that. And also other people, it's not like Googleable, but other people can access the record if they go to court. The big difference with this process is that there is no social worker report. And if there's agreement between the parents, this can actually even be done without appearing in court. So this is a really great process for people who really don't want to go the social worker route, and who maybe don't have the level of concern about international travel, or the level of concern about changes under federal law, that maybe they have a legally recognized marriage that they feel very secure in. Then this is a great process for those families who really just want one extra layer of protection with that court order. The process for a confirmation of parentage is a little quicker than the adoption process. Typically, the non-birth parent files a petition, and the birth parent will agree to that petition via what's called a joinder, which basically is a signature at the bottom of the petition that says, yep, I'm on board. There are supporting documents, typically a birth certificate, and another declaration that sort of tells the court a little bit about your family. And then you file proposed final orders. All of those things go together. If you are working with an attorney, so if you're with our program, we do it all electronically, and the court returns the documents with the judge's signature. If you are doing it on your own, you may have to go into the courthouse, or in this time of COVID-19, you may have to do a phone hearing. But with our program, you don't have to appear in court at all. We do it all electronically. So some pluses are it's a quick and easy process with no social worker. Some of the minuses are that it's available to a narrower range of families, and it's not quite as broadly recognized. So if you walked into, if you were encountering, for example, a homophobic hospital worker in Kansas, just pick a state, not to be hard on Kansas, and that person, that person might know what an adoption is, and might know that, oh, if you're an adoptive parent, you're good. But if you say, well, I'm a confirmed parent with this court order, they may or may not recognize what that means. It really depends on how homophobic they want to be, or transphobic they want to be. But it's not something that has that immediate name recognition like adoption does. But it can also be a really great and really quick process for some families. The third process is de facto parentage. The outcome of a de facto parentage petition is a court order recognizing someone as a parent based on their relationship to the child and what duties they have performed with the child, and not necessarily their relationship to the other parent. So this is something that is really broadly available to people who may be parenting children of friends, people who may be parenting children of exes, and who don't, but it's not about that relationship to the other parent. So the criteria for de facto parentage, de facto just basically means like you've done so many things that you're basically a parent at this point. And some of those criteria are that you live with the child for a significant period of time, that you have taken care of the child financially and emotionally without being paid yourself. Now, some important distinctions there. This is meant so that a nanny, for example, who may raise a child, or an au pair who may raise a child, is not a de facto parent because they're being paid for that relationship. But if you are parenting a child and you have received, for example, some state benefits based on your income level, or have at some point received benefits because you at some point had a guardianship relationship with the child, you're going to want to investigate that more. Definitely talk one-on-one with an attorney about your family's specific situation. But just because you, for example, got food stamps at one time, doesn't, or the birth parent while you were caring for the child sometimes gave you some money to cover food or things like that, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be a de facto parent. It's really about, were you taking care of the child for pay? You do have to have acted as if the child was yours, sort of holding out the child as, as having a parent-child relationship. That can look like a lot of different things. So again, it's important to talk one-on-one with an attorney about what that looks like for your family. And there has to be a finding that you created a parent-child bond with the child, that the child looks to you as a parental figure. And then finally, and this can sometimes be the sticky part, there has to be some showing that the other parent, that a birth parent or biological parent, supported and consented to the relationship that you have with the child. So often what this arrangement will look like is a parent who can't care for their child and gives their child into the care of another family member or a friend, maybe a partner, before or after that, that relationship is active, willingly does that, and then and does it for long enough that that other person, in order to have sort of safety with their relationship with the child, to make sure that they are allowed to make decisions, to make sure that they have access to everything that they need for the child, then would want to pursue de facto parentage. And this is something that comes up a lot for our families, particularly for LGBTQ communities, because we are so oriented in our communities towards chosen family and community care. So this can be something that is really helpful for families where you may be taking on care for a child, or you may have a role in a child's life that is really important and would really benefit from some legal security, but you don't necessarily have that relationship with the other parent. The process for de facto parentage is that the person wanting to be recognized as a parent files a petition and provides evidence of what they have done to meet those factors, provides evidence of how they have taken care of the child when they lived with the child. Sometimes the birth or bio parent will agree to that petition. Other times, if they don't agree, the petitioning parent just has to show that at some point the birth parent or the bio parent agreed to and fostered that relationship. Then there is a hearing in front of a judge where the judge asks questions about that relationship, and it's really to establish the facts on the record. It is a permanent, not a temporary relationship. So a de facto parentage is not a guardianship. A guardianship is a temporary legal parent-child relationship where a guardian is standing in the shoes of a parent. A de facto parentage process is it establishes a permanent legal parental relationship, much like adoption. And again, it is open to any person, family member, friend, partner, former partner, neighbor, any person who meets those criteria. So those are the three main ways that LGBTQ families can establish legal parent-child relationships outside of a birth or biological relationship. So to talk a little bit about how you get there, the Q Law Foundation has the Family Matters Clinic. This is a really great clinic. It is funded through King County. So we are available to serve any family in King County that wants to pursue a legal parental relationship between a person and children using any of the processes that we've talked about. It is a start to finish legal relationship. So that means that you become a Q Law Foundation Family Matters Clinic client at the beginning, and one of our volunteer attorneys or staff will walk you through and represent you through the entire process until you get that court order that you can take home with you. It is free of cost. So regardless of income, we do orient towards low and middle income families because we know that it can be really difficult and costly to go through these processes on your own. And what free of cost means is exactly what it sounds like. We cover the court fees, we cover the attorney time, we cover the social worker time, we cover the cost of your court records. So there is zero cost to you. And all of our attorneys and social workers are trained to work with LGBTQ+ families. What that means, and most of our attorneys and social workers are actually LGBTQ themselves. So what that means is that our core value is that your family's inherent beauty and resilience and positivity and creativity is recognized from the very beginning. That we are not here to evaluate your family structure. We are not here to again, this is not a process where you're being evaluated for fitness as a parent or whether you deserve to be a family. Our value is that your family already exists and is already worthwhile and is already beautiful. And what we are doing is closing that legal gap to make sure that you have all of the protection that you need should anything terrible happen. So you can register for our clinic by going to qlawfoundation.org. You'll see a link to the Family Matters Clinic, and you can learn more details about how the clinic works on that page. There's also a registration link there for if you'd like to sign up. If you're not sure, you can do a couple of different things. One is you can email info@qlawfoundation.org and ask if we're the right fit for you. You can also go ahead and register, and we'll communicate with you about what your needs might be. And if we're not the right fit, we'll help you find the right fit. And then another option is that you can go to our LGBTQ legal clinic and have just a very short conversation with one of our volunteer attorneys. And then if it seems like this is a good fit for you, it does meet your family's needs, and you can go ahead and register for our clinic. So there's a lot of different ways to get information. And then you are always welcome to email us or call us with any questions. And we really want to be here as a resource for you, and to help make sure that you fully understand exactly what the role of the legal system can be for your family. We know that none of you want to go through this process. We know that none of you are asking to go through this process because it's super fun. And so our objective is to really make this as easy as possible on you. So with that, that is all of the information about our clinic and about these different forms of parentage. And we really encourage you to reach out, talk with us if you have any questions, and just know that we are here for you to support your families and to help you make sure that you feel secure and you feel protected for every moment in your child's life. Thanks so much, and we hope we get to talk to you soon.